Whoop. Hello? Hello. Hi, I'm Emony. Um, I'm going to be doing, whoop, there we go. I'm going to be presenting a comedically short introduction to Gundam and Gunpla. Apologies if I sound a little bit, weird. I had some dental surgery last week and it's still kind of affecting my mouth. But I think it's going to be a good time. Hello! Um, anyway, so yeah, this is my comedically short introduction to Gundam, and then we're going to get a little bit into Gunpla, which is like the hobby related to Gundam. Um, yeah, so I am in the wrong window. So, what is Gundam? Um, yes, it's a Gundam. So this was created originally back in 79, 78, 79 is like the gestation period, by Yoshiyuki Tomino, Yoshikazu Yasuhiko, and Kunio Okawara. Most people who follow Gundam kind of only know Tomino because he's been like the face of things, but a lot of the scripting and character designs, and especially the mecha designs, were done by Yasuhiko and Okawara. So, thank you! Yeah, I opted not to do a webcam because my face is super swollen still from dental work. So I'm just like, maybe a reactive avatar. And yeah, it's a giant franchise, largely produced by the Sunrise Studio known as Hajime Yatate. Some people tend to think this is a person. It is not. It is just, it is the studio name. Kind of like how Sega had AM2, or like Nintendo's R&D divisions, things like that. The thing that ties most, if not all, Gundam shows together is an anti-war theme, and that the vast majority, the overwhelming majority, outside of a couple of them, are fundamentally political in nature, which sometimes puts some people off, but like it's usually quite thoughtful. Um, and was one of the reasons that the show has kind of endured, like the franchise has kind of endured over the year. And yes, even G Gundam, which we will get to. G Gundam can be described as Street Fighter in space with giant robots. And also, when it came out in 79, it gave rise to the real robot genre, which at the time, most mecha shows were either something like Mazinger Z, or kind of like Astro Boy adjacent, where it was like a super powered robot person, or it was like a giant super controlled robot, or like remote controlled robot, or like Getter, where it's like three robots magically merge into one with the power of, well, we made it up. And while Gundam can sometimes be thought of as being very sci fantasy, or just a little like a little, I don't know how to put it, over the top in places, it is nonetheless very it is trying to be as realistic as possible. But it is sort of the Star Trek of Japanese sci-fi. Um, so you kind of like you do the same suspensions of disbelief because it's like, yeah, bipedal robots fighting, not fundamentally realistic, but like let's go with that. Excuse me. Um, and yeah, it was almost a failure. When it got released originally on TV, nobody watched it. It was really unpopular. Or so they kind of thought, because what really saved Gundam. So the way that they did polls back then, like household polls, viewer polls, things like that, is they kind of only interviewed men and boys. And then when Sunrise, well, I don't know if they were Sunrise at the time, but the studio at the time actually held like a fan get together, they found out that like 90% of the audience was women and girls. There's an interview with the Nikkei Post that in which Tomino is interviewed, and he says, "Yeah, out of like 2,000 people, you could say that like 80 to 90% were women and girls. And a big part of that was the anti-war message, but also the fact that it was like very focused on the found family dynamic and the characters. And there were a lot of shows that had the token girl. Hi, Arch. But this had like actually developed, women and girls in it who like an audience could relate to, and they weren't just, oh yeah, that's the pink Power Ranger over there. She's the girl of the team. So like, yeah, it was like a lot of well-rounded characters, and that really like spoke to a lot of people. And it actually, like, Gundam was super unpopular. Let me turn on my stories. Yeah, no, that's like super accurate actually. Um, Gundam was seen a little bit as a soap opera, and like it resonated because it had some emotional depth. It's like the originals are really hard to watch now because just the pacing is like forever, but there's still some really good meat in there. And you can watch the like original TV show as like the three compilation movies, which I kind of recommend because it cuts out a lot of the chaff. Anyway, um North American success came in 2000. So between 1979 and 2000, basically North America did not really care about Gundam. There were like some fan showings and things like that, but on the whole, Gundam just like the shows that they tried to bring, like they tried to bring over the original movie trilogy, and it flopped because it looked so old. You can't easily sell 1979 animation when there isn't like an established market in the year, like I think it was 98 when they tried to show it. So you can kind of understand. But yeah, Gundam Wing, which is actually like from 95, came here and was shown on YTV in Canada and Toonami or Adult Swim, I don't know which, in America. Um, too young for retro, need to ferment more. Yeah, I mean basically. But yeah, Gundam Wing kind of exploded the Gundam franchise, and if you were alive and watching TV in 2000 through 2004 ish, you probably saw Gundam Wing commercials for a wide variety of things, including like the first model kits we ever got. Yes, endless waltz having endless waltz, according to YTV. Yep. Um, and I mean, this was part of the bigger anime explosion. Like Sailor Moon had happened, and Dragon Ball Z had happened, and a whole bunch of other shows, including like Lindsay's beloved Vision of Escaflowne, which like with Gundam Wing was one of the first big mecha franchises to make it here. So yeah, Gundam Wing also actually kind of saved Gundam. And again, one of the reasons was Gundam had been failing for a bit. In early 90s, Tomino went through like a really depressed period, and he wrote Victory Gundam. Um, it is hard to watch. I do not watch that show. I watched it once. I don't want to watch it again. It's not bad, but it's hard to watch. And it tanked Gundam's ratings like all through Japan. And they tried to rebound with G Gundam next, which is like on the surface far more lighthearted, being Street Fighter in space. But it didn't really catch on. It was like a little too weird for the established Gundam franchise following, and just couldn't find its feet. Like it did fine, but Sunrise was looking at Gundam like, I don't know if we can do this. And then like Gundam Wing in Japan was like kind of almost the same. Like it was just middling success. Slightly more popular than G, but like not really going anywhere. But when it hit North America, it just like shocked Sunrise how well received it was. And again, it was the women and girls audience. You could not go to a website about fanfic in like 2001 without seeing some of the Wing Boys just getting shipped. Um, I actually, I don't know if Victory's not canon. Tomino says a lot of things. He is often wrong because he doesn't actually like control the IP. Sunrise does. So yeah, Wing was sort of the beginning for Gundam in an international market. Anyway, so there are two types of Gundam shows. And hilariously, Wing is not the first type, despite it being the one that's like super well known over here. The first type is called the Universal Century, or UC Gundam. It is one long continuous narrative, like everything is canon. It pretty much stems from the events of the One-Year War, which is in context, the year that mobile suits, which are like the thing that a Gundam is and a Zaku is, like the robots that people pilot, they become like the weapons of war. And most of humanity is wiped out because one of the factions drops a nuclear colony on the Earth. Actually, I should rephrase that. I don't remember if the colony is nuclear itself. But yeah, no, it's just like it destroys most of humanity and like habitation and everything. And then the series does it like three more times. It's weird. They can never get past this plot point. But yeah, it starts in the Universal Century year 0079 and ends question mark with a show called G in Reconquista, known as G Reco, a show that you have to be a certain kind of person to enjoy. I don't know what that person is, and that's not shade to these people, but I could not make heads or tails of what was eventually going on. um, but yeah, currently G Reco is like the end of Gundam UC. And I believe the origin, the anime, not the manga, Gundam the origin is the start more or less, but it kind of feels like fanfic in a way because it's about Shar Aznable, the guy you see here selling a burger. Um, but it really feels like, hey, these are my war memoirs as told by me, the cool guy, who is definitely the hero of this story and not, in fact, going to be like a problem later. Let him cook. Oh my god. You know what? Missed opportunity to put Hungry Burger in Char's hand. Um, for Yu-Gi-Oh fans, Hungry Burger is a burger that wants to eat you as a card, and it literally just got support in the game. Anyway, um, but yeah, so UC is also where like Shar Aznable was born and became a phenomenon. And every Gundam show more or less tries to introduce a Shar character. And typically they will be the ones with a mask on. If you are watching The Witch from Mercury right now, the Shar is Prospera, Soletta's mom. Um, in Wing, it was Zex Merquise / Miliardo Peacecraft. Um, yeah, it just look for the guy in the mask. He's sometimes blonde. And in Prospera's case, is a woman. Um, that's typically what the Char is, and it's because Char became just like an instantly recognizable brand mark for Gundam. Um, excuse me. To hear it told from gunpla enthusiasts who tend to be like middle-aged dudes still and younger dudes, they'll say like, oh, it's because Char is cool. But no, in like 1980, um, there were a lot of like independent zines, or I guess proto zines. They weren't zines yet, but like writing circles and things like that, fan clubs. And it was just women making Char and Amuro kiss. And it gave rise to what might be the first like ship name, Charmero. So Charmero is like an ancient meme at this point. And yeah, no, like fangirls love Char. And like, he's supposed to be this like dashing, sort of mysterious person. Um, and at least in the original show, he is not super problematic. That will change. Which brings us to war crimes. um, yeah, you see Gundam tends to deal very, very heavily with wartime themes and ideas around like what it means to be against war, different political factions, like people who are pro-democracy, people who are basically fascists, um, and there's just a lot of struggle there. But for whatever reason, they can't stop like firing nuclear bombs or dropping colonies on the Earth or at other colonies, or like using gas on colonies to kill millions of people. So like Gundam doesn't pull any punches about like its political war crime stuff. And eventually this boy here, this handsome man Char, who would like you to eat a burger, he does several war crimes, and that is the plot of Char's Counterattack, which was the movie that was about Char and Amuro just staring into each other's eyes in a loving embrace as they, well, one of them tries to blow up the Earth and the other one tries to stop him. So that's pretty much where Char ends up. You know, standard anime stuff. We're just gonna blow up the Earth. It's fine. Just gonna drop a giant meteor on it. Love and love and war crimes. Yes, exactly. And it's often thought of as Orthodox Gundam. I know that word there is a little like cropped out by the kanji logo. I did not test every slide before I came on. Can you tell? But yeah, it's considered orthodoxy, and if you have run afoul of the kind of cult of UC Gundam, there are a lot of people who will not watch anything but UC Gundam and just cleave to it with all their might, and it's very tiring. Anyway, moving on. The other type of Gundam show is the alternate universes, or the AU. Most of these shows are self-contained, in that like they are their own timelines, and they don't rely on the UC for anything. UC has two good shows. Oh my god, Arch, I don't need to be canceled, okay? But yeah, a lot of the time, so I have said here is mostly used to explore ideas that can't fit in the UC canon, and that is true. That is true if you are in the writer's room. If you are a Sunrise executive or at Sunrise Marketing, it is because you want to sell toys, and sometimes a design or an idea doesn't fit in the UC, and you're just like, well, why don't we try a new show? It'll be fine. We'll sell 1,000,000 toys, and it'll be great. And this is where Gundam Wing, G Gundam, Seed, and Witch from Mercury fit in, among like many, many others. Seed particularly was like the next show after Wing to become popular internationally, and it's actually like a retelling of the original 0079, but like, okay, I'm not gonna like harp on it too much. I just think Seed is like kind of too edgy for its own good. But what can you do? Um, and yeah, it's mostly TV shows. There's been occasional movies, but like by and large, it's the 24 to 58 episode TV show run stuff. And it is often the thing that if you run into the cult of UC, they will be like, no, you shouldn't watch these. These are bad. And like, I agree that UC has a lot of good shows, more than two Arch. But I will say that a lot of the AUs often outdo the Universal Century shows, like especially Witch from Mercury and Iron-Blooded Orphans. Yeah, Tomino sometimes is involved in an AU, but like rarely, and honestly, that's good. He can sometimes do a good show, but like I'll explain a little towards the end just how much has to be wrestled out of Tomino's clutches. Good UC shows, like, you unfortunately do have to watch the original show to get full context. Well, you can watch the movies, but after that, watch 0080. Just bring your tissues because it's a tragedy. Oh, it's a mess team's a good time. It has it's supposed to be the Vietnam War edition of 0079. Um, yeah, and I love 0083 Stardust Memories, but I can't say it's very good. Um, it's a fun watch. That's what I'll say. Do any of the Gundam dance though? Not really until Turn A Gundam, which is both somehow a UC and an AU show because okay, well, next slide. The three types of Gundam shows. So the meta shows, yes, Ariel does dance, which from Mercury Ariel does dance, and it's really charming. So the three types of Gundam shows. The third type is the meta show. They're mostly toy centric. They're aimed at younger fans a lot of the time, and meant to explore and sell gunpla. Sometimes they're parody like SD Gundam, but there is one important exception to this, which is Turn A Gundam. Turn A Gundam is, according to Sunrise, an alternate universe Gundam. According to Tomino, it is a Universal Century Gundam, which is why I say Tomino says a lot of things. It also features the music of Yoko Kanno and designs by Sid Mead. So it is actually just incredible. And Tomino is like credited as the creator of it, but it was mostly written by a person named Hoshiyama, who envisioned it as Heidi and Anne of Green Gables in Gundam. So they're called the meta shows because a lot of the time they kind of deal with like Gundam as a meta universe. Like they stand outside of Gundam. Like sometimes Gundam exists as a franchise inside the show. Sometimes it is adjacent to it. With Turn A, it is both and neither. Turn A was conceived of, according to Tomino, as a way to unite all the timelines. So, like, all the AU shows were going to become UC shows all of a sudden. And Turn A was put, like, far, far into the future to let this happen. And in Turn A, they do stuff like dig up, like, Zaku's and all that, like, archaeologically. But, it presents, like, such a giant headache for canon that Sunrise just eventually said, let's not do that. No, this is a bad idea. So, if you want to go on Google at some point and Google up the dark history of Gundam, uh, the dark history is a canon thing inside of Turn A Gundam, and it is Tomino trying to make everything fit in, like square peg into a round hole stuff. So, um, but yes, Turn A is really good, by the way, and might be like the best show that Tomino was actually involved in. And Yoko Kanno's music, like if you do nothing else, listen to the soundtracks. They're incredible. Like if you love Cowboy Bebop or you love Escaflowne or any of that stuff, if you like a good Yoko Kanno soundtrack, this is like the underappreciated Gundam soundtrack. This is the underappreciated Yoko Kanno soundtrack. Oh, this slide popped up weird. Okay. Um, well, this is supposed to animate in, so I'll just like put them all on. So sometimes people are like, "Where do you begin?" And my advice is start with an alternate universe that seems appealing, or watch the original movie trilogy. And honestly, I would do the first in most cases to figure out if you like the feeling of Gundam overall. And then if you really want to dip your toes into like the continuity of UC, then watch the original movie trilogy so you're set up. It's sort of like the price of admission to that one. And yes, as Arch is pointing out, Tournay was supposed to be the first show to have a female main Gundam pilot, but they shot that down. And so Laura became Lauren, but the writers, just decide, you know what, we're gonna put Lauren into a dress at some point in the show anyway. Um, Marketing be damned. Anyway, so go in expecting war, politics, and character-driven plots in most of them, because there'll be people who are like, oh, these shows are about cool robots and giant mechs fighting each other, and like, yes, that's true, but that's not the point. And there's a whole section of the internet Gundam fandom that is very about cool robot. That's all I care about. I only care about the technical manuals and the design schematics and the fights and stuff. And it's like, okay, like if that brings you joy, cool. But that's not fundamentally what a Gundam show is. At least not when Gundam is like firing on all cylinders. And like, yeah, it's more accessible than it seems. And really, like, when people start off with, oh, it's about giant robots, like that, yes, but like that's no. Mazinger Z and Get a Robo are about giant robots. Gundam is about the cost of war and how it affects civilian lives. I'm about cool lesbianism robots. Like, same, honestly. And watch Witch from Mercury. It is the newest Gundam show. It finished airing its first core, which is like the first half of a season, in December, and it's coming back in April, and it's really good, and it has the first canon female MC of a Gundam show, and the canon couple is queer, and it's really well animated, and it's just charming as all heck. And like also just fantastically written by one of the people who worked on Utena and did like the Utena novels and stuff. And yeah, no, it shows, because it's like, we're at a dueling academy. We're going to have, like, corporate political shenanigans. Relationships will be had and hearts will be broken. And yeah, uh, uh, let me put it this way: Witcher Mercury is very disarming, because its school setting tends to make it feel a little lighthearted, and then like they microwave someone in an episode, and just like, oh right, corporations are evil. So yeah, yeah, no, like it has strong Utena vibes all over it. It's not quite as abstract, because it still has to be like a fairly grounded show, but it like spiritually feels like Utena. And also like watch G Gundam, because like on the opposite end of the spectrum, G Gundam is like the hot blooded cool shit that like, yeah, just Gundams slugging each other, and everything like is nations against nations, and like trying to find a solution to international crises and stuff. Also, there is a horse Gundam, um, piloted by the champion of Neo Hong Kong named Master Asia, who can fight a Gundam with his bare hands. But he also has a Gundam that has a horse Gundam, and it's just incredible. And it doesn't take itself seriously, and that's like honestly for the best. I say horse Gundam, and Lindsay is suddenly like, ooh, maybe. Yeah, yeah. The Mexico Gundam with a sombrero called the Tequila Gundam. The oh god, the Portugal Gundam that is for some reason a clown. Yeah, no, it's wild. The British Gundam, the UK Gundam called the John Bull Gundam, just like has a Buckingham Palace guard hat and a rifle, and it's just like, oh. Also, the American Gundam is both a football quarterback, a boxing star, and a surfer dude all in one. It's amazing. We support the Tequila Gundam, all of us Latinos. Yep. Okay. Um, and yeah, like another way to get in is like watch some YouTube videos, visit a local hobby shop or convention, or join a Discord. Like these are like Gundam has a huge community presence. I will say, if you can, try not to fall into the popular Gundam Discords to get started because they can be not great places because there is a lot of spillover from the Chan boards of old. But eventually you will find niches. I will link my Gunpla Discord at the end of this. We are like super queer friendly and just progressive and welcoming and all that stuff. And we don't welcome in like joyless chuds who just want to like hate on stuff. Oh yeah, no, sneaky plug. Arch, you are already in my Discord. Okay, a quick notes on model kits, manga, and more because Gundam is more than anime. Thank you. Link is in the chat now. So yeah, finding a local model shop. A lot of hobby shops, including like, I hate to say it, but like Hobby Lobby and Walmart, do stock Gundam now. But you really want to support a local hobby shop because they will mostly, like, a lot of the time, they will very distinctly know what they're talking about and be able to point you in the right direction in terms of like finding friends and getting model kits and recommendations for like anime and manga and stuff like that. Um, if you are getting into Gunpla specifically, and I say this because I have had so many friends who have not bought. Well, they have bought the expensive stuff, thinking, "Oh, more pricey, more better." No, more pricey, sometimes better. Yes, more pricey, more complicated, and not necessarily better. So my strong advice here is to not start with real grades or perfect grades because those are super complicated. And just lots of tutorial news on Discord and YouTube's. Um, and if you want to find manga, the truth is there is very little. We did get a translation of École du Ciel, that I think Tokyo Pop did back in the day, but most of them are actually available only online via Zionic translations. So Google them, and you'll be able to find some good stuff. The Johnny Raiden mangas are really really good to get started if you just want some like very very Gundam reading. They are Universal Century stuff. Beltorchica's Children is an adaptation of Char's Counterattack, which was like the big UC movie of the 80s. And yeah. And yes, Gundam Wing has a few pretty great short spin-off manga. So yes. Highly recommend looking for manga, and yeah, Zionic is a great place to start. Okay. So that was sort of now that we're like coming up on, well, we just passed a half hour. So I wanted to the back half of this about the thing that I do with Gundam, which is called Gunpla. And so I'm going to go over some model grades, nippers, sanding boards and files, model cement hobby knives, various tools that that are important to the hobby. Because one of the core joys that I take in this, even when the shows are bad, sometimes yes, nippers. Listen, I know that they're called like flush cutters or side cutters, but like the jargon is nippers. Um, yeah, no, like even if a Gundam series is bad, sometimes it has really cool robots. So I strongly enjoy Gunpla. Yeah, the Zadra from Age is an incredible model kit and great design, and that show is awful. Is this what you see if a Gundam takes off its shirt? Yes, you see its nippers. Yes, very good. Yeah, okay. So, Model kit grades, and I'm going to talk about both Bandai model kits and non-Bandai ones. This photo that I have up here is a Valkyrie from Super Dimension Fortress Macross, and as it is titled, not Gunpla, for a reason, because it is not Gunpla. So Bandai makes a whole bunch of different graded kits. Now, this is not an exhaustive list. They have stuff like High Resolution and Master Grade Extreme and stuff, but basically these are the grades that you want to think about. Entry grade, high grade, master grade, real grade, and perfect grade. Entry grade is kind of what it says on the tin. It is the Gundam that you can use, like the gunpla that you can use to get into the hobby. It is pretty, like, easy out of the box. There's very few parts. Everything snaps together, and you'll get something that's pretty anime accurate. It's not usually, like, embellished upon to be, like, more realistic or anything. The articulation can be good. It can be kind of bad. Like, it depends. But it's a relatively recent grade, actually. I think it's only a few years old. And that means, like, the actual quality is actually really consistent. High grades, meanwhile, are the, like, that is, when you see a Gundam model kit in a store, that is probably what you have seen. Yeah, so first early grades came out just, like, 3 years ago now. So high grades are, like, the thing that we think of. You'll just see, like, an HG on the side of the box. And the reason that entry grade exists is, in fact, to kind of supplement what high grade has started to miss. And what I mean is, like, high grades are getting way, way more complicated. And that's like a good thing, but it's also just like, oh, well, now these kits have to be like $30 to $50 as opposed to like $12 to $20 because people are demanding more and more realism out of them and more quality and more parts. So early grade has kind of been introduced to supplement high grade, and high grade has become like the main line that you would buy Gundam from. And it kind of used to be the only line. Entry grade and high grades both come in at a scale of 1 for 144th scale. So, like, yeah, 1 to 144. Master grades, meanwhile, come in at 1/100. So they are the fairly larger kits, and they tend to be a little more robust. Early master grades from, like, the late 90s are, they're okay. But, like, a master grade will often have more weapons and more articulation and more, like, gimmicks. Like, I have a thing that's called the Gundam Alex, and both the high grade and the master grade exist of it. And what's really nice about the master grade is, like, it has these wrist cannons that open up and are just really cool for display and posing. You often get, like, better color accuracy and, like, more decals and things like that. And they're easier to paint and to pose. Real grades are also 1/144 scale, but they are kind of if a master grade was compressed down into a high grade, and then also sometimes made way more complicated. They started off with something called an internal frame, or an inner frame. They don't do that anymore because inner frames were a skeleton made of plastic that went inside the model kit, and then because the plastic wasn't very good, it would wear out and the joints become droopy. So they don't do that a lot anymore. But real grades are a really nice way to get a smaller kit that is very, very highly detailed. Though I will say outright, do not buy any of the Zaku 2s, because for whatever reason, a Zaku has these, like, pipe pieces that, like, go around its chest and like, extend from its legs and stuff. And, like, my inner frame feels the same way sometimes. Yeah, no, same. So these pipes on a high grade would probably be like one piece of molded plastic, and on a master grade, they might be like little beads that you would put on like a tube of plastic, you know, to make it like seem more realistic. On the real grades, for whatever reason, they decided to put a metal spring that you had to put the little beads over. So while assembling this, you're just gonna lose. You're just gonna lose all of the little beads as they kapwing across your room, never to be seen again. And then also the joints are terrible. So don't get the Zaku 2s. On the other hand, if you like the Zeong or the Sazabi, their real grades are some of the best. And then there's the perfect grade. Perfect grades are humongous. They are giant. I can't remember their scale off the top of my head. They are intended to be perfect, essentially. Yes, thank you, Arch. 1/60th. 1/60th scale. So they're huge. They often come with like LED kits in mind. So like there's like spaces for wiring of LEDs to go inside. They're usually highly articulated. They have a ton of option parts. And like they're really cool, but they're a pain in the butt. So I usually just recommend like have a bunch of kits and a bunch of experience under your belt before you tackle a perfect grade. 1 second. There we go. And then we get into non-Bandai kits. So, these don't necessarily have a scale. It really depends on what company's doing it, and so you'll have to look for a scale. Because sometimes people will buy a thing they think is a Gundam, and it's like, oh, well, what's that 1/60th thing doing next to your 1/44th thing? That's weird. And it's not that, like, there's not anyone who produces, like, off-brand Gundams officially, but there are a lot of Chinese and Taiwanese, like, off-brand creators who basically just, like, make up Gundams or make, like, variants on Gundam suits under different names. So just be careful and look at scales so that if you want your display to look a certain way, or you have like something in mind, or you're familiar with a certain like scale, that you're just, you know, you're working within what you know. And some of the better ones out there are Volks, which make 5-star stories kits, which are just incredibly beautiful, elegant machines. Kotobukiya, who makes oh wow, I have completely lost what Kotobukiya makes. They do like, I believe, the Gun Arms Girl stuff or something like that. They do a lot of just like other anime mecha. I want to say like they did Muv-Luv or something. I'm not super familiar with Kotobukiya. Good Smile sometimes does model kits. They're mostly known for their Nendoroids and other figures, but sometimes they do model kits. And then Hasegawa, which the Valkyrie above is one of their kits. They make a lot of Macross kits and a lot of fighter jets and stuff, and they are very high quality. And then there's a bunch of Chinese and Taiwanese manufacturers who frequently, because Bandai comes after them, may change names. Some of them just get shut down, but like a lot of them are really good, and they're getting better every day. And like Bandai has reason to be concerned, honestly. And then there's also like all this terminology. Also, say hi to Yuki over here, Yukimoto. He is not a gunpla. He is also not a gunpla, and neither is the Millennium Puzzle, but Bandai makes Millennium Puzzle kit. Because of course they do. So some terminology. Plamo stands for plastic model. So when some people say gunpla, they may mean not a Gundam, not a Gundam kit, and they're talking about Plamo in general. Gunpla refers specifically to Gundam plastic models. And as we're getting into things, I think you mispronounced twink. Yes, well, you see. Anyway, so all model kits basically come on sprues or runners, which are the plastic frames around the parts. And you're going to want a pair of nippers to cut those parts away. If you're going to do painting, you're going to want some surfacer, which is primer, whether you're doing hand or airbrush. You may want to trick out your Gundam a little bit with effect parts, which are pre-made parts for energy beams, muzzle flashes, etc. They're often like a nice translucent plastic, and you just have to get them in scale. You may need some glue to apply them to certain models because they're not made for every model. You can get LED lighting kits. And going back to Gundam Wing, sorry, one sec. I just need a cough here, so I'm just going to mute myself for a second. Okay, sorry about that. Going back to Gundam Wing, there are also kits called no grades. And no grades were like some of the first Gundam kits. So if you were living in the early 2000s and saw hobby kit like Gundam plastic model kits on like YTV or Toonami or whatever, commercials for those are called no grades. And that's usually because they don't follow a specific size or like a specific manufacturing quality. So yeah, those are referred to as no grades. And then you'll also find kits called first grades, which are old school gunpla from before grades were a real thing. And they're actually like, they still make them, complete with like the retro 80s, early 90s box art and everything. It's actually really cool. And in many ways, like the Millennium Puzzle up here is actually a no grade because it does not follow a particular grade. Like it's not in scale for anything. I guess it's real life scale technically, but like, what does that mean with this particular object? Question mark. But it's often like no grades are just a shorthand way of saying, oh yeah, that thing isn't inside like a scale factor or a particular line. But like it's not like a diss on the actual product. Because like the Millennium Puzzle, yes, very complicated because you have to assemble the parts and then assemble the puzzle, but like very high quality. So, okay. So talking about nippers, because these are the primary tool. Also known as side cutters, nippers are the primary tool for removing gunpla parts from the sprue or runners. Oh, I guess my slide got resized. Huh. I didn't realize this when I was checking them earlier. Sorry. Anyway, gunpla parts from the sprue or runner from the surrounding plastic. So basically, you're going to go in with your nipper, and you're going to remove like the little part from the surrounding frame. And once you do all of that, you can assemble your gunpla. However, it is my strong recommendation that you go through the instruction book and do it piece by piece by piece. Because they'll tell you like, oh, we're going to build the arm now, and then we're going to build a leg, and then we're going to build a head. And so if you are not experienced with gunpla, where you kind of like know how the pieces work and are good at identifying, especially for like the first few kits, just follow the instructions. And don't clip them all out at once. Also, do not paint on the sprue. All that will do will mean that when you cut it away, you will have an unpainted spot that is then extraordinarily difficult to fill in. So yeah, don't do that. I know, like, sometimes it looks convenient, but no, it is the opposite of that. And so there's usually, like, a couple of types of nippers. You'll want primary nipper and secondary nipper. And I actually have these back to front, I just realized. Apologies again. A primary nipper is for cutting away from the sprue. So you'll make one cut, and then when you have the piece in hand, you will switch to your secondary nipper for cutting away like the remaining plastic nub. And I will have a demo of how that works coming up very shortly. And you can buy these from Tamiya, Egon, Godhand, Hobby Mio, and Mr. Hobby, among others. These are just like some of the better trusted names. Everyone will recommend you a Godhand. Do with that information as you will. You don't need them. I will say, like, Godhands are buttery smooth, but they are fragile. So I would say that for your primary nipper, you want to go with something from Tamiya or Egon. That's just a little more robust. And then for your secondary nipper, because it's more delicate work, maybe then get a God Hand or a Hobby Mio that like is at the higher end. And it really like it is sharpness versus durability in a lot of those cases. So do some research, see what's a durable one for your primary and what's a delicate one for your secondary. And often one of the big things is your primary nipper should be dual bladed. Everyone needs God Hand on their in their life though. Yeah, like great game. um, but yes, so dual blades mean that like both sides of the nipper have a blade and they move together, and that's usually good for like trimming a part out from the sprue. They're not a scam, Arch, but I understand. I understand the disappointment of that. Single-bladed nippers, on the other hand, usually only have one edge on them, and the reason you want that is because the edge can cut very, very cleanly, and so you don't get like wear and tear marks from where like the blades may have squeezed the plastic. It's just like it cuts through like butter. So often for your secondary nipper for your detail, you want to look for a single blade. Okay, and this is a little animation I prepared for like how to do cutting away. So hopefully it just plays. I threw this together in like 20 minutes, realizing that I wanted like a good visual aid. Anyway, so this is pretty much like I'm only going to have one pair of nippers on screen here, but pretty much my recommended technique for when you start doing gunpla, because a lot of people will try to do a thing with it. So there's your sprue, you've got what's called a gate, which is where the plastic thins, your part, your nipper, and a file. And then a lot of people will think, oh, well, I should cut in, you know, pretty close to the part, right? No, don't do that. Don't do that. Move your nipper over to closer to the actual sprue so that you leave the gate free. That way you won't twist plastic away. So you go in, this would be with your primary nipper, and you cut it away. Make it real easy, you know. Pull the part out, you know, like do all the clipping and then move your nipper over or switch to your secondary nipper. And so part in hand, then you get a little closer to the part. And you might be able to do this like with just the nipper, but you know, you go in, try to cut as flush as you can, get that little nubbin off there, and you might be left with like some nub debris. And that's easy enough. You just go in with a file, which is usually like a sanding board or a metal file or a glass file, and you get rid of it, and it's good. Yeah, nub stubble or the nubble as we call that. So yeah, just a little animation there. I don't need you to play again. I need you to stop playing, in fact. Hold up. I don't know why it's doing that. Okay. Oh, this is out of order. I guess I dragged something. There, okay. We'll go back to stickers in a moment. So, sanding options. So, when you have that little, like, nub, the nub stubble, the nubble, you pretty much want to go in with a sanding stick of some sort. So, sandpaper is pretty much like the cheapest option because you can get a million sandpaper for no dollars. But I would recommend getting some sanding sticks, or some metal files to start with for, like, some more robustness and getting in for some detail. However, glass files and buffer blocks are where it's at. Glass files get rid of a lot of the plastic without like stressing it out and causing any like extra marks. And then buffer blocks are a thing that I learned from doing my nails. Because yeah, they're basically just four-sided, real nice different grits of sandpaper. And you can just remove the nub that way and you can polish the plastic back to where it was. Yeah, like if you have buffer blocks, just use them for this. And honestly, like if y'all are doing your nails, glass files and buffer blocks also good for those. Yeah, I am moving away from like metal files and emery boards, honestly. Then you have panel liner, which is a nice way of bringing out like the like plates, like the metal plates, the fine lines on your suit, on your little kit. You have the pen type and the liquid type, And the liquid type is really cool. Like, the pen type is definitely easier to do, because you just go in and it's a fine liner. You can actually use like Sakura microns if you want to use a money pen. But with liquid liner, you can actually like smear it and stuff using a Q-tip, and it can like do some really cool wear and tear stuff. Which you can actually kind of see here when you get into painting. This is a gun cannon that I'm making, and a bunch of the wear and tear on it is actually panel liner that I have smeared on. So it looks like it's been through like mud and ash and like gunpowder and stuff. I guess it wouldn't be gunpowder, but you know. Um, Thank you. So with painting, if you want to get into it, you know, like I know that it can be super intimidating if you watch some YouTubes or you go to like a convention and everyone's done airbrushing. Don't worry about it. A lot of great results come from hand painted acrylic. Like everything here is hand painted acrylic. This was one of my first things that I painted. And I also use some hand painted ink, which is just like you go and get some Winsor Newton ink, and it's good for staining and doing some like weathering and stuff. You can also use lacquer based paints, but they bond to the plastic, and they're smelly, and I don't like them. But like some people really love them, but so they are an option. And these days I do have an airbrush. I use airbrush acrylics because, again, I do not like working with lacquer. And lacquer has a fumes problem. So acrylics are way easier, but you do need a ventilation system. An easy option is also the Gundam markers. They just literally have markers for painting your Gundam with, and they're basically lacquer-based markers that you don't huff the markers. Actually, I don't know if they're lacquer-based. They might be like alcohol-based, but either way, they're very potent. And they actually do a really nice job of like leveling themselves out. Kind of, yeah. And then of course you can dry brush stuff, which I did on the gun there. Like the cannon piece is all dry brushed to like give it a more rugged look, and that's where you just like you remove as much paint from your brush as possible, and you go over it in coats just to make it look like speckly and stuff. And then there's some other tools you can use. You can use modeling putty like the Tamiya epoxy, and just lets you like you can repair parts with it, or you can add and make parts. You can use Warbler. Everyone go, where's Warbler for Dan? Or what's Warbler, rather? Warbler is a thermoplastic, and I've started experimenting with it in Gunpla, and it's actually really cool to build things that maybe, like, the Crossbone Gundam has a cape that I don't really care for in terms of the model kit itself. I think the cape's kind of eh. So you can just make your own out of Warbler, and then you can pose it, and you can do like cool mods to armor. Like if you wanted to make a like battle damaged shoulder piece or something, you can remodel in Warbler. It's totally doable. Also very good for like contrails coming out of like rockets and stuff. Craft foam, not hugely used, but good for terrain. You can use flock, of course, which is like fake grass that you basically apply to the terrain. And you can use pre-made terrain. And all sorts of competitions are out there for using all of this stuff. Excuse me. And just quickly some resources, because we are coming up on time, so I'm going to start wrapping this up. So some YouTubers that if you really want to get into Gunpla and also broadly Gundam, Gunpla Melly is really cool. Frosted Snow just started posting again after like a year away. It turns out she had a kid, and now she's back, and she's just wonderful in terms of like getting into airbrushing and stuff like that. Mecha Guy Kotsu does reviews of kits. Kakarot197, who does like general Gundam news, including Gunpla kits and like show news. Gio-san Pedro and Studio G, who do wonderful things, and Jenik. Jenik, I will warn you, it's all in Korean. He sometimes has subtitles, but not often. And of course, you know, join Gunpla Discords, which like mine was linked earlier, but there's plenty out there. Go to conventions and hobby groups. If you're at Anime North this year, there is a giant Gunpla group from Montreal that comes out, and also Side 6, which is the local Toronto club. And they have a huge display in the Toronto Congress Center, and we'll be running some panels. And we also have like local hobby shops like Argama Hobby, Panda Hobby, Meeple Mart, Wings and Wheels. And a cool project I started last year is the Global Hobby Shop list, which is linked there in chat, and is a spreadsheet of all of the Gunpla stores that we could find in the world. So, oh yes, and Dalong.net, which is a good way of looking up kits. And I'm just going to end with this real quick commercial from 1980s Gunpla. This is how they sold Gundam. So yeah. Thank you all for coming out and listening to me talk about my nerdy hobbies. And I hope that this was informative. And that you all have a wonderful kanji, the rest of kanji. And yeah, I will see y'all later, and say hi to me at Anime North if you're coming out to that as well. Thank you!